With apologies to genius Frank Ryan, the smartest quarterback in NFL history is Charlie Johnson. When you hear about what old Charlie accomplished, it will make the biggest type A personality blush. He attended New Mexico State on a basketball scholarship and was a walk-on for their football team. By the time he walked off the Aggies campus, he was the 1959 and 1960 Sun Bowl Most Valuable Player, and he earned a chemical engineering bachelor's degree. Later, he became their first football player to have their uniform number retired, number 33. The NFL's Chicago Cardinals drafted Charlie in the 1960 10th round as a future draft pick, as he had 1 year of college eligibility remaining. In 1961, he was drafted by the San Diego Chargers in the 8th round of the AFL draft. The Cardinals offered Charlie $3,000 more than the Chargers, so he signed with the Cardinals. By 1963, Charlie made the Pro Bowl when he threw for career bests 28 touchdowns and 3,280 yards. In 1964, he was the NFL leader in passing attempts, passing completions, and passing yardage. In the second game of the 1965 season, he threw 6 touchdown passes against the NFL title-defending Browns. By the end of the 1965 season, Charlie had passed for 300-plus yards in a single game 10 times, which tied him with Bobby Lane and Billy Wade for 4th all-time. Sonny Jurgensen was 3rd with 12, Y.A. Tittle was 2nd with 13, and John Unitas was 1st with a whopping 15. Today's quarterbacks rack up 100-plus yards passing per quarter with regularity, but play was much different in the 1950s and 1960s, and passing yards weren't so easy to come by. In 1967, he was called into active duty by the Army ROTC, but was deemed unfit for combat. So he was stationed with and worked for NASA as a second lieutenant in the U.S. Army Reserve for 2 years. He was still playing for the Cardinals and working on his doctoral studies. The Cardinals kept him on the roster when he was on active duty with the Army for 2 years, and he commuted to the games from wherever he was stationed. For 5 years until he completed work on his doctorate, Charlie's routine was to attend classes until noon, then transfer his thoughts to pro football practice in the afternoon, then at night study his chemistry courses. As his prominence around St. Louis increased, he took on a third career as a sportscaster. He conducted a daily radio sports show. He prepared written commentary at 5:15 in the morning, taped it at 6 o'clock, and it was delivered at 8 o'clock. All of these activities were in addition to being a husband and father of 2 children. Jim Hart did most of the quarterbacking during the 1967 and 1968 seasons for the Cardinals. An undrafted free agent, Hart led the NFL with 30 interceptions in 1967, but he improved markedly in 1968 when he threw 15 touchdowns against 18 interceptions. In 1969, Charlie had a much better touchdown-to-interception ratio, a 17-point higher quarterback rating, and a lower sack percentage than Hart. I guess the Cardinals liked Hart's potential as he was entering his prime years as opposed to Charlie being seemingly past his prime at age 31 because the Cardinals traded Charlie to the Oilers with cornerback Bob Atkins for cornerback Pete Beathard and cornerback Miller Farr on January 21st, 1970. Beathard was age 27 and coming off a 1969 season in which he struggled. He only had 10 touchdown passes against 21 interceptions, and his 55.6 quarterback rating was 10th of 12 AFL quarterbacks. For Charlie Johnson, it was a case of going from a bad 4-win, 9-loss, 1-tie Cardinals team in 1969 to a 1970 Oilers team that would only win 3 games. Charlie's first game with the Oilers was also Terry Bradshaw's first NFL game. Bradshaw only completed 4 of 16 passes with 1 interception, 2 sacks, and a safety. Charlie threw 2 touchdown passes and didn't throw any interceptions. Charlie started 10 games for a bad Oilers team, and he only threw 7 touchdowns with 12 interceptions, but he showed a lot of guts, and the statistics don't tell the whole story. Charlie broke his collarbone on this play in Week 5, just before halftime. He started in Week 8 at Kansas City and went 20 of 42 passing with 3 interceptions. In Week 10 against the Browns, he went 20 of 37 with 3 interceptions, so he clearly wasn't sharp after his injury. The Oilers' opponents knew that they were going to throw often because their rushing game was ranked 19th out of 26 in terms of most yards. Houston threw the most passes in the NFL during the 1970 season. Charlie only started 4 games in 1971, and he had had 5 leg and arm surgeries prior to the start of the 1972 season. On August 16, 1972, he was traded to the Broncos, which ended up being a terrific move for both Denver and Charlie, even though head coach John Ralston started Steve Ramsey the first 5 games of the year, while Charlie scrambled to learn a new playbook. Charlie started 9 games. The Broncos won 4 of them while he threw 14 touchdowns against 14 interceptions. In Week 14, he was removed from the game in the fourth quarter with a 31-7 lead. He had a great day by completing 13 of 17 passes for 218 yards and 3 touchdowns. Pulling a quarterback from the game with a big league was common fare back in the day. Now they keep him in to pile up the passing statistics. At age 35, old Charlie started every regular season game in 1973. His 20 touchdown passes was the third most in the NFL, although his 17 interceptions was also the third most. In Week 2, ex-Viking wide receiver Gene Washington scored his first Broncos touchdown. He only had 10 receptions and 3 touchdowns for the year. Johnson led Denver to their first winning season in their 14-year history with 7 wins, 5 losses, and 2 ties. At age 36, Charlie threw 13 touchdowns and 9 interceptions while starting 12 games. How much was left in the tank for the 1975 season? Not much. 6 starts, 5 touchdown passes, and 12 interceptions. A highlight to the season was a 90-yard touchdown connection with rookie Rick Upchurch, the only 90-plus yard play by a Bronco in the 1970s. At his retirement, his 170 passing touchdowns was 15th best all time, and his 24,410 passing yards ranked number 14. He's in the Broncos Ring of Fame, and ProFootballReference.com ranks him as being tied with Archie Manning as the 87th rated quarterback of all time. After football, Charlie became a professor of chemical engineering, and he was a master on the theories of thermodynamics and the properties of plastics. With the tremendous amount of money that today's quarterbacks make, and even the ones who played in the 1990s, why would they want to or need to further their education in order to plan for future earning sources so they could continue making a living? Charlie was truly a modern Renaissance man.